Every year, thousands vanish without a trace, leaving behind unanswered questions, broken families, and chilling mysteries that defy explanation. In this special presentation, we revisit 3 haunting cases of missing persons. Each one a stark reminder that behind every headline is a human story, forever paused in time. Tonight, we journey into the unknown, piecing together the fragments they left behind, and asking the questions that still demand answers. The unforgettable disappearance of Rachel Whitmore, Marietta, Georgia, 2002. On a cold February evening in 2002, just as the last sliver of daylight dissolved behind the pine tree line outside Marietta, Georgia, 22-year-old Rachel Whitmore stepped into fading twilight and was never seen again. No phone, no witnesses. The hollow hum of wind over cracked asphalt and an empty car left idling on a quiet road near the Chattahoochee River. Before we begin, I want to let you know that due to the limited visual materials and the age of this case, there isn't much existing footage or imagery to support the story you're about to hear. Because of that, this episode will be accompanied by a single image background throughout. Think of this as more an immersive audio experience, a storytelling session that lets your imagination fill in the gaps. Now's the perfect time to grab your headphones, maybe even some popcorn, and settle in. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button and subscribe as we dive into the details of Rachel Whitmore's disappearance. Her disappearance would tell one of Cobb County's most haunting and enduring mysteries. Despite years of investigation, classified reports, and dozens of tips, Rachel's case remains unresolved. No suspects, no solid leads, just questions that echo louder with time. File reference, GBI Missing Persons Unit. Case number 0 to 132 megawatts. Rachel Lynn Whitmore was the kind of person people remembered, not for anything flashy or dramatic, but for something quieter. She was gentle, reliable, one of those rare souls who listened more than she spoke. She grew up just outside of Marietta in a modest brick ranch home off Johnson Ferry Road, surrounded by pine forests and winding back roads that, in the early 2000s, still felt a world away from Atlanta's creeping urban sprawl. At 22, Rachel was in her final year at Kennesaw State University, majoring in elementary education. She worked part-time at a local coffee house called Grounds and Grace, a small brick cafe nestled between a hardware store and an old Baptist church in East Cobb. Those who knew her, friends, family, co-workers, describe her as thoughtful, quietly funny, and deeply kind. She kept a tight circle of friends and was never the type to chase attention. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, there were no obvious signs that anything was wrong. No strange behavior. No changes in routine. Her roommate, Danielle Carter, told investigators that Rachel had been more tired than usual, maybe a bit withdrawn, but chalked it up to midterm stress. She had recently completed her teaching practicum and was juggling coursework with her shifts at the cafe. Her last known sighting occurred on the evening of February 19, 2002. According to the police timeline, Rachel had worked a full shift at Grounds and Grace that afternoon. CCTV footage captured her leaving the cafe just after 6:45 p.m., dressed in a heavy beige sweater, dark jeans, and a worn black peacoat. She waved to her manager, stepped into her 1996 Toyota Corolla, and pulled out into traffic headed east. That was the last confirmed image of her. Roughly 40 minutes later, Rachel's vehicle was discovered abandoned on a gravel turnout near the river access point off Paper Mill Road. The engine was still running. Her purse was on the passenger seat. The driver's door was slightly ajar. No footprints led away from the vehicle. No tire tracks indicated another car had been involved. The surrounding woods were dense, thick with loblolly pine and bare oak limbs in their winter nakedness. The Chattahoochee River, cold and dark, moved sluggishly just beyond a curtain of brush and tall reeds. Investigators arrived within an hour. The initial presumption was that Rachel had suffered a mental breakdown, perhaps wandered into the forest, or, though there was no sign of this, fallen into the river. But the evidence didn't support that theory. Cadaver dogs brought in from Macon failed to catch a scent trail leading into the woods. Helicopters searched with thermal imaging through the night. Divers scanned the riverbed for days. Nothing. No coat, no shoes, no torn fabric caught on bramble, no sounds of struggle. It was as if she had stepped out of the car and simply ceased to exist. Law enforcement report. Cobb County Sheriff's Department. Incident file 0219-023-R23R. Detective Marcus Elwell, now retired, led the initial investigation. In a 2014 interview, he recalled the scene as eerily calm, like someone had hit pause on everything around that car. No sign of panic, no noise, just a kind of quiet that didn't feel right. They canvassed the area. Neighbors in nearby subdivisions reported nothing out of the ordinary. No screams, no headlights, no knocks on doors. One man, a retired park ranger named Harold Kent, told deputies he saw a vehicle matching Rachel's make and model parked near the turnout around 7:15 p.m., but thought little of it. He assumed someone had come to walk the trail, though in February at dusk, it would have been unusual. Forensic analysis of the car yielded no foreign fingerprints, no signs of forced entry, and no evidence of a struggle. Rachel's phone was not found in the vehicle, nor was it ever located. Her last outgoing call had been made at 6:52 p.m. to her roommate, a missed call with no voicemail. That call pinged a tower near Paper Mill Road. In the weeks that followed, flyers went up across Cobb County. Her face appeared on the evening news. Volunteers combed the riverbanks and wooded trails in coordinated sweeps. Rachel's parents, Thomas and Evelyn Whitmore, stood before cameras begging for information, their eyes heavy with fatigue and hope. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation officially joined the case by March, classifying it as a missing adult under suspicious circumstances. But as weeks turned to months, the trail went cold. Theories began to circulate, as they always do in such cases. Some believed she had taken her own life, though there was no evidence supporting that claim, and her family vehemently rejected the idea. Others speculated about a possible abduction. The secluded location where a car was found could have made her vulnerable, though no one could explain how someone could have forced her away without leaving a trace. A former boyfriend, Tyler Massey, was questioned extensively but had a solid alibi. Rachel's co-workers described no suspicious visitors, no troubling phone calls, and no altercations. The closest thing to a red flag came from a journal found in her bedroom weeks after her disappearance. One entry, dated February 5th, mentioned a strange man who had visited the cafe and sat for hours without ordering anything. She had noted that he made her uncomfortable, writing simply, "He didn't blink." Police attempted to identify the man, but had no surveillance footage in the cafe that day. The description, white male, late 30s or early 40s, bald with thin beard, matched no known suspects. Another unsettling detail emerged years later. In 2006, a woman hiking near Soap Creek, less than a mile from where Rachel's car had been discovered, found what appeared to be a torn scrap of paper with Rachel's handwriting on it. Forensic analysis confirms that the handwriting matched Rachel's journal entries, but the paper was water-damaged and unreadable, save for a single legible line, "Don't trust." Who or what she meant remains unknown. Over the years, Rachel's case has been quietly re-examined several times. In 2012, the GBI reopened a file to cross-reference DNA with new forensic databases. In 2019, a podcast episode featuring her disappearance sparked renewed public interest, leading to an influx of tips, none of which panned out. Her parents, now in their 70s, still keep a light on outside their home every night. Detective Elwell once said, "It's not just that she vanished, it's how still everything was, like the world swallowed her whole. And not even the trees had the nerve to make a sound about it." Case status, active unsolved. Last investigative update filed, August 2023. Despite the passage of time, Rachel's story refuses to settle. Her case is discussed in missing persons forums, true crime communities, and by locals who remember that winter as one of unease. The turnout near Paper Mill remains open to the public, though few linger after dusk. And on quiet nights, when the fog rolls and low along the Chattahoochee, some say you can hear footsteps on the gravel and a car door clicking softly in the dark. What happened to Rachel Whitmore on that February evening remains a mystery. And there are still strange threads left to pull. Unanswered questions, whispered sightings, and a second, eerily similar disappearance just 2 towns over. Timeline of a disappearance. Cobb County Sheriff's Department. Internal Memo 0219 TLD. What happened to Rachel Whitmore on the evening of Tuesday, February 19th, 2002, remains one of the most confounding events in Cobb County history. Every detail of that day has been dissected by investigators, journalists, and amateur sleuths alike. Yet, despite a well-documented timeline and dozens of interviews, no definitive answers have emerged. What follows is a comprehensive walkthrough that final day, charted minute by minute, based on verified sightings, phone records, and physical evidence collected from the scene. 8:10 a.m., East Cobb, Georgia. Rachel begins her day at her shared townhouse off Roswell Road, where she lives with her longtime friend and college roommate, Danielle Carter. According to Danielle's statement, Rachel seemed normal, just a little quiet, eating a granola bar while reviewing her lesson plan folder. She had a practicum shift scheduled that morning at Timber Ridge Elementary, followed by her usual afternoon shift at Grounds and Grace Cafe. She left the house around 8:10 a.m. in her silver 1996 Toyota Corolla. She wore a beige knit sweater, dark jeans, and a black peacoat. No makeup, as was typical for her. 9 a.m., Timber Ridge Elementary. Rachel arrives at the school and checks in at the main office. She is assigned to Mrs. Donna Frey's 3rd grade class, where she assists with reading activities. Multiple staff members and students remember her being present and in good spirits. A minor detail stood out. When asked if she was feeling okay, Rachel reportedly said she was just tired and had been getting weird dreams lately. Mrs. Fry later recalled Rachel saying she had woken up twice during the night, thinking someone was knocking. 12:45 p.m., Timber Ridge parking lot. Rachel leaves the school and drives directly to Grounds and Grace Cafe. Her shift was scheduled to begin at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. to 6:45 p.m., Grounds and Grace Cafe. Rachel works her full shift without incident. Co-workers stated she was quiet but focused, managing the counter and prepping for a small poetry event scheduled that weekend. Around 4:30 p.m., she was seen staring out the front window for several minutes. When asked what was up, she shrugged and said, "Just spacing out." Manager Lisa Hutchins told detectives she noticed Rachel checking her phone a few times during her shift and appearing unsettled. She wasn't nervous, just distracted, Hutchins later reported, like she was waiting for something. CCTV footage confirmed she left the cafe at 6:47 p.m. She exited alone, holding her purse and keys, and got into her Corolla. There was no sign of anyone following her. 6:52 p.m., last call placed. Rachel placed a call to Danielle, which went unanswered. No voicemail was left. Phone records show it pinged off Tower 14 located off Lower Roswell Road, consistent with a presumed route toward her townhouse or a detour to the river access point on Paper Mill Road. This was her last known phone activity. 7:16 p.m., vehicle discovered. At 7:16 p.m., a local resident named Harold Kent, a retired park ranger, noticed a vehicle pull off on a gravel turnout near the Chattahoochee River access. He later described it as oddly parked, engine humming, lights still on. Ken assumed it belonged to someone taking a quick walk. At 7:42 p.m., the same vehicle was reported to authorities after another passerby found it still idling with no one inside. Deputies arrived on the scene at 7:53 p.m. The scene was cataloged under Initial Field Report 0219A. Crime scene description: Paper Mill Road River access point. Rachel's Corolla was found parked just off the gravel, partially angled toward the woods. The driver's door was ajar. The engine was running. Headlights were on. Her purse was still in the passenger seat. Wallet, university ID, keys, and a paperback novel were inside. Her phone, however, was missing. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle, no blood, and no obvious indication she'd walked into the woods or down toward the river. The turnout itself led to a narrow trail, popular with dog walkers and locals, but quiet and largely untraveled in February. K-9 teams deployed within 2 hours found no scent leading away from the car. A light rain began around midnight, further complicating scent tracking. Midnight to 3 a.m., initial search operation. Search teams from the Cobb County Sheriff's Department and local volunteers combed a 1-mile radius around the vehicle. Drones and a helicopter equipped with FLIR were used to scan the treetops and riverbanks. Nothing was found. By 3:15 a.m., the vehicle was towed and placed in secure evidence storage. No fingerprints other than Rachel's and her roommates were discovered. No digital trail was left behind. Her phone never pinged another tower. February 20th to 21st, family and media response. Rachel's parents, Thomas and Evelyn Whitmore, were notified early the next morning. Her mother, visibly shaken during a press conference later that day, pleaded for anyone who might have seen something come forward. "We don't care why she's gone. We just need her back. Please, if you know something, anything, don't wait," she said, her voice trembling. The press conference was broadcast regionally and picked up by local affiliates. Ground searches resumed, this time aided by volunteer fire departments and local hiking groups. Flyers with Rachel's face were posted across Cobb, Fulton, and Cherokee counties. Theories began to surface. Red herring 1, the river theory. Given the proximity of her car to the river, many assumed Rachel had fallen or jumped into the Chattahoochee, but divers found no trace of clothing or human remains. The current that night was slow and water levels were low. Even if she had gone in, noted GBI Special Agent Craig Herman, we would have found something, a shoe, a phone, but there was nothing. It was like she never made it to the water. Red herring 2, the jogger confession. On February 23rd, a man in his early 40s walked into the precinct claiming he had seen Rachel at around 7:10 p.m. walking down Paper Mill Road. He described her in striking detail, but could not account for how he knew what she was wearing, since that information had not yet been released publicly. Investigators later determined the man had a history of inserting himself into missing persons cases and dismissed his claim as attention-seeking behavior. He was not charged, but was noted in the case files as a repeat false witness. Witness statement: Evelyn Carson, dog walker. On February 21st, local resident Evelyn Carson came forward to say she was walking her German Shepherd near the trailhead at approximately 6:55 p.m. the night Rachel disappeared. She remembered seeing a girl standing near the passenger side of her car, looking down the path. Carson said she waved but received no acknowledgement. "I just thought she was upset or arguing on the phone," Carson said. "But now, I wonder." Emotional impact and community reaction. Within days, Rachel's disappearance had gripped the local community. Candlelight vigils were held outside her university, and prayers for her return echoed through Sunday sermons at nearly every church in town. Her classmates organized search parties. Professors offered extensions for those too distraught to focus. Danielle Carter, her roommate, gave one public statement. She wasn't the kind of person to run off. She had routines. She always texted when she was late. Something happened to her. I feel it in my bones. Emerging theories and law enforcement perspective. With no physical evidence pointing to suicide, accident, or abduction, law enforcement began to focus on behavioral profiling. They requested Rachel's laptop and personal journal, hoping for clues. Her journal entries revealed little more than standard student stress until they hit the page dated February 5th, 2002. Entry: that man from just stared. No blinking. Made my skin crawl. Hope he doesn't come back. Her co-workers confirmed that a man had matched that vague description and had been seen loitering at the cafe earlier that month. But with no surveillance footage and no name, the lead went cold. Strange discovery. March 14, 2002. 3 weeks after Rachel vanished, a Georgia Power employee performing a routine inspection along Soap Creek found something unusual wedged beneath a drainage grate. A small notepad page, water damaged but partially legible. It bore handwriting consistent with Rachel's and featured a single sentence: "Don't trust." The rest was illegible, smeared by rain and runoff. Theories blossomed online. Some believed she had been followed for weeks. Others suggested she had uncovered something she wasn't supposed to know. Media and public obsession. True crime forums picked up the story by early April. A Reddit thread in 2010 cataloged every known detail and sparked the Chattahoochee Phantom theory, a belief that Rachel was one of multiple victims of an unidentified serial predator operating near river access points across northern Georgia. The theory remained speculative, with no supporting physical evidence. In 2014, a documentary miniseries titled Vanished, Georgia Shadows aired a special episode on Rachel's case. It reignited interest, but still, no new leads emerged. Latest development, August 2023. After 2 decades, the GBI quietly reopened the case for a digital forensic reanalysis. Using enhanced AI audio reconstruction, they attempted to extract environmental sounds from her final call's digital trace. What they uncovered shocked even seasoned analysts. In the background of Rachel's missed call at 6:52 p.m., there's a faint sound, a click, followed by something that could be interpreted as a soft voice or wind. The lab report remains sealed. As of today, Rachel Whitmore is still listed as a missing person. Her case is open, unsolved, and deeply haunting. But the story doesn't end there. Case file 0219RW status. Open unresolved Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Cold case division. They say time brings clarity. That with every passing year, the haze of mystery lifts, illuminating what once seemed inexplicable. But when it comes to the disappearance of 23-year-old Rachel Whitmore, time has only added layers of complexity, speculation, and silence. Since her abrupt disappearance on February 19, 2002, countless theories have emerged. Investigators, amateur sleuths, and psychologists have spent years dissecting the same chain of events, hoping to uncover a pattern or overlook detail that might finally crack the case. But the further they dug, the deeper the mystery grew. Let's take a closer look at the 3 prevailing theories behind one of Georgia's most haunting unsolved cases. Theory 1, the silent abduction. No struggle, no scream, no clue. Internal GBI memo, 2005. Of all the working theories, the possibility of a calculated abduction remains the most widely accepted by law enforcement and private investigators alike. Here's why. Rachel was last seen leaving her cafe job at exactly 6:47 p.m. CCTV shows her exiting alone, keys in hand, walking directly to her car. Nothing appears unusual. By 6:52 p.m., she placed a call to her roommate, Danielle Carter, a call that went unanswered. Authorities believe this window, those crucial 5 minutes, may have marked the beginning of something far more sinister. The car was discovered a little over 20 minutes later. Engine on, lights still glowing, door ajar. There was no sign of a struggle. But to experienced investigators, that was precisely the problem. Abductions that leave no trace are rarely crimes of impulse, said retired FBI profiler Martin Lenz, who reviewed the case in 2011. They're often practiced, premeditated, and most of all silent. The theory suggests Rachel may have been followed after leaving the cafe. Someone, possibly a patron who'd been observing her for days, could have waited until she took her usual route home. Paper Mill Road, especially in winter, is poorly lit and flanked by dense brush on both sides. The river access point where her car was found is particularly secluded. A skilled abductor could have waited for her to exit the vehicle or distracted her with a fake emergency, injured dog, lost item, or even familiar voice. One working hypothesis from the 2003 FBI report suggested a cooperative lure, where the perpetrator may have impersonated someone in distress or someone she vaguely knew. The most disturbing element? No physical evidence of her presence near the river trail. No hair, footprints, or fibers was ever recovered. It was as if she evaporated from that spot. Some investigators speculate the scene was staged to appear as if she simply wandered off, when in reality, she may have been taken somewhere far more remote. Supporting evidence. Rachel had previously written about a man who stared without blinking in her journal. A similar silver Corolla was reportedly seen days earlier parked in the same turnout, possibly scoping the location. A known sex offender with a history of stalking was living within 5 miles at the time, though no evidence ever tied him directly to Rachel's case. Challenges to the theory. No witness saw another vehicle or individual at the scene. No screams or signs of distress were reported in the area that night. No DNA prints or trace materials were recovered. Despite these hurdles, the silent abduction remains the official working theory by the Cobb County Sheriff's Office to this day. Theory 2, voluntary disappearance. When the weight gets too heavy, sometimes people just vanish. Dr. Angela Desmond, clinical psychologist. While law enforcement lean toward foul play, others, including a subset of behavioral experts, have long speculated that Rachel may have orchestrated her own disappearance. It's an uncomfortable thought, but one worth exploring. According to her friends, Rachel was introverted and self-contained. Her roommate, Danielle, described her as deep, always thinking, like her brain was full of storms she never let out. 2 weeks before she vanished, she had begun sleeping poorly, mentioning strange dreams and hearing noises at night. Her last journal entries speak cryptically about feeling watched, being out of step with reality, and wanting to restart somewhere clean. She had no documented history of mental illness, but some believe she may have been struggling with undiagnosed depression or dissociation. Supporters of this theory cite the following details. Rachel made no purchases or transactions after her disappearance. But what if she had pre-planned it? Withdrawn cash slowly? Stored essentials off the grid? She was majoring in child psychology, knowledgeable in how to plan, mask, and manage emotions. One classmate remembered Rachel mentioning how easy it would be to disappear if you really wanted to. That conversation took place only days before she vanished. The voluntary vanishing theory posits that Rachel may have driven to the river not to hurt herself, but to shed her identity. Some suspect she may have hitchhiked or met someone there to take her elsewhere. A lesser-known but chilling wrinkle involves a bus ticket discovered in a used bookstore in Macon, Georgia, 6 months later. It was found inside a copy of Catcher in the Rye, Rachel's favorite novel. According to her mother, the ticket was dated February 20th, 2002, the morning after she vanished. Could it have been hers? The name on the stub was smudged, and the bookstore owner had no way of tracing how it got there. The timing, however, continues to raise eyebrows. Supporting evidence. No signs of a physical altercation or forced entry at the scene. Rachel had been behaving increasingly distantly in the weeks prior. Cryptic journal entries suggested an internal struggle. Challenges to the theory. She left behind her phone, wallet, ID, and car, unusual for someone plotting a new life. She had no passport, no known aliases, and no documented plans of relocation. Extensive checks with Social Security, DMV, and employment records showed no activity under her name or likeness post-2002. If she did vanish of her own accord, she did so with surgical precision, and without ever looking back. Theory 3, something else entirely. You don't go missing like that without something bigger pulling the strings. Anonymous forum post, 2008. Among the local community, especially those who knew the river and surrounding woods intimately, a third theory emerged. Stranger, darker, and less tangible. Locals called it the Ridge Silence. According to town folklore dating back decades, the stretch of forest where Rachel's car was found has long been associated with strange occurrences. Voices echoing when no one is around, lights in the trees, sudden shifts in temperature. Hikers have reported getting lost for hours in places they knew by heart. Dogs refused to walk certain sections of the trail after dusk. In the late 1980s, 2 teenage brothers went missing in the same woods. They were found hours later, naked, uninjured, and unable to explain where they'd been. Their watches had stopped at precisely 7:13 p.m. Rachel's call was placed at 6:52 p.m. Her engine was still warm when it was found roughly 25 minutes later. The supernatural theory suggests something otherworldly may have happened. A thin place, as folklorists call it. A location where the boundary between this world and another grows thin. Now, the rational mind resists this, but those who support it point to a pattern. Several disappearances have occurred within a 30-mile radius of the same river bend since the early 80s. None have ever been solved. Some witnesses have reported glowing orbs near the river's surface on foggy nights, always between 6:30 and 7:30 p.m. In 2016, a podcaster covering the Rachel Whitmore case interviewed an anonymous man who claimed to be researching the frequencies of the Soap Creek tributaries. His belief? The water itself emitted a low hum, undetectable to human ears, which could disrupt time perception or cause brief fugue states. It's speculative, unprovable, but in a case with no footprints, no signs of struggle, and no final message, even the implausible begins to feel possible. Supporting evidence. No trace of Rachel was ever found. No remains, no belongings, no calls. Historical reports of other inexplicable events in the same area. Strange environmental phenomena recorded by hikers and rangers. Challenges to the theory. No scientific proof or physical evidence. Often dismissed by law enforcement as conspiracy or folklore. Investigative attention is limited due to the intangible nature of claim. A tangled legacy. To this day, Rachel Whitmore's case sits in a locked drawer at the GBI Cold Case Division in Atlanta. Every few years, a new lead emerges. A possible sighting, a suspicious confession, a tip that feels just credible enough to chase. But the result is always the same. No body, no suspect, no resolution. Rachel's parents never moved. They still live in the same modest ranch house off Johnson Ferry Road, where Rachel grew up. Her room remains untouched, books stacked beside the bed, posters still tacked to the wall. Her mother says she dreams of her often. Sometimes she's standing at the end of the driveway, just staring. Other times, she's in the woods, whispering something the wind won't carry. In a 2020 interview, Thomas Whitmore said something that still resonates. You want closure. You think that's the goal. But after all these years, you realize closure is just a word. What we want is truth. But the truth is elusive in this case. It's a ghost with no form, a puzzle missing half its pieces. So we ask you, what do you think happened to Rachel Whitmore? Was it a tragic accident? An abduction carefully planned and executed in total silence? A voluntary escape from a life that had grown too heavy to bear? Or something far more sinister, lurking in the shadows of Paper Mill Road? Drop your thoughts in the comments. For more content relating to horrors and missing cases, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and remember, some answers never come. The unforgettable disappearance of Erin Calloway, Deadwood, South Dakota, 2011. On a wind-lashed February evening in 2011, 26-year-old Erin Calloway walked out a roadside diner on the edge of Deadwood, South Dakota, and into a silence that would never be broken. Her car was still parked out front. Her wallet was left behind, and the snow around the lot remained untouched, except for her footprints, leading away, then stopping abruptly. Case file, DPD 211 FMC Missing Persons Unit, Black Hills District Task Force. Erin Michelle Calloway was the kind of person who left an impression without trying. Known around Deadwood as thoughtful and fiercely independent, she worked at the historic Bullock Hotel, where tourists often mistake her for a guide because of her detailed knowledge of the town's storied past. She had a quiet passion for her history and a love for solitude, traits that only deepened following the sudden death of her younger brother 2 years prior. Locals remembered her as reserved but kind. She had this stillness about her, one former co-worker later said, like someone who carried something heavy but wore it lightly. Erin's friends describe her as dependable, someone who would always answer a late-night call, but rarely made one herself. She didn't drink. She didn't party. She kept a routine that never strayed far from home, work, and the occasional hike along the pine-choked trails of the Black Hills. The last time anyone saw her was February 9th, 2011. It was just after 8 p.m. when she left the Golden Fork, a modest diner off Highway 14A, near the edge of the forest. The waitress on shift remembered her sitting alone at a corner booth, sipping hot tea and picking at a slice of rhubarb pie. She seemed preoccupied, distracted. She asked for the check, but never finished the dessert. Security footage, grainy and muted, shows her stepping outside, clutching a folded coat in one arm. No phone in sight. She pauses at the door, glancing back inside as if second-guessing herself, then disappears into the brittle cold. It was 112 degrees Fahrenheit that night, the kind of cold that cuts through layers and shortens breath. A snowstorm had passed through early that morning, leaving a dense, untouched blanket across the parking lot and bordering pine forest. Her car, a navy blue 98 Subaru Outback, remained parked near the entrance for 3 days before it was reported. The engine was off. The keys were still inside. The driver's seat was pulled forward, her usual position. Her purse was found on the passenger side, zipped and untouched. Deputies from the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office responded first. A quick sweep of the area yielded nothing. No signs of a struggle. No footprints beyond a few that led away from the car, about 30 yards toward the tree line, and then stopped cleanly with no indication of turning back or continuing forward. No drag marks. No scuffs in the snow. It was as if she had vanished mid-step. What baffled search teams most wasn't the lack of evidence, but the lack of disruption. Trained dogs were brought in 2 days later. They caught a faint scent trail heading northeast into the trees, but lost it completely at a half-frozen creek, less than a mile in. Helicopters flew grid patterns for nearly a week. Volunteer teams, numbering over 150 by the weekend, combed the woods, following elk trails, abandoned mining roads, and old fire breaks, but nothing emerged. No coat, no footprints, no answers. Deadwood is no stranger to stories, steeped as it is in frontier myths and ghost tales. But Erin's case struck a different chord. The media covered it briefly, just enough to stir speculation, but not enough to raise lasting awareness. Her parents, who lived in Rapid City, held vigils and posted flyers across the region. Her mother, Erin Calloway, appeared in a tearful segment on KV and Black Hills Fox, pleading for any information. If someone saw her, anything, we just want to bring her home. Months passed. The case turned cold. Case status: Unsolved cold case file updated July 2013. There are few details investigators have ever released publicly, but certain elements have surfaced through interviews, Freedom of Information requests, and unofficial leaks. A partially redacted report, case note DPDFMC-011A, mentions a maintenance worker who claimed to have seen a woman matching Erin's description walking along the shoulder of Highway 85 that same night, around 9:30 p.m. The report notes that visibility was moderate to poor, and the worker said he only saw her in his rear-view mirror after passing. He didn't stop. Another mention in the file refers to a voicemail left on Erin's mother's landline at 10:42 p.m. the same night. It consisted of faint static and what the audio engineer described as rhythmic knocking, but no voice. The call was traced to a now-defunct payphone outside a service station 28 miles west near Beulah, Wyoming. No fingerprints were recovered. One of the more enduring theories came from a retired search and rescue officer who had worked the original grid. Speaking anonymously on a local podcast years later, he said, "There was something off. I've done this for 30 years. This wasn't someone getting lost. This wasn't someone running. It felt orchestrated, like she was plucked. Despite a multitude of leads, no suspect was ever identified. No body was ever recovered. And perhaps most haunting of all, no one ever reported seeing or hearing from Erin Calloway again. As time passed, stories and rumors began to fill the silence. Some believed Erin had walked into the forest intentionally, as a kind of quiet suicide, a final retreat into the woods she loved. Others speculated she had witnessed something she wasn't meant to and was silenced. There were whispers about a long-haul trucker route that passed through Deadwood, connecting cases from as far as Montana and Idaho. One theory even posited she left on her own, fleeing from a past no one truly knew. Her apartment, a small 2-room flat above a closed antique shop, remained untouched for weeks. A neighbor described hearing footsteps the night after she disappeared. Slow, deliberate, she said, like someone pacing. Police found no signs of forced entry. Her journals, which she kept meticulously for years, ended abruptly 3 days before she vanished. The final entry read simply, "Dream of snow again. Can't see the road. Just trees. And something is waiting." To this day, the disappearance of Erin Calloway remains one of the most unsettling cold cases in South Dakota history. Her files sit among dozens of unsolved missing persons reports, cataloged in the state's centralized database as MPSD 110209 Cal. Every few years, a tip resurfaces, Someone claims to have seen her in Colorado or found a scarf like the one she wore in a pawn shop window in Nebraska, but none of these leads have ever borne fruit. Law enforcement keeps the file open. Her family keeps a porch light on. And in the town of Deadwood, where winter comes early and leaves late, there's still a quiet unease when night falls over the pine-covered hills. Because in the silence left behind by Erin Calloway, something still lingers. February 9th, 2011, timeline of disappearance. It was a Wednesday. The Black Hills were bracing for another cold front, and most residents in Deadwood stayed indoors unless necessary. Erin Calloway, however, kept her usual routine, one that, in hindsight, would be dissected by investigators down to the minute. 6:45 a.m., Bullock Hotel, Main Street, Deadwood. Erin arrived at work early, as usual. She was employed as an overnight desk clerk, often covering the graveyard shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. According to the building's shift log, she clocked out precisely at 6:42 a.m. A fellow employee, Angela Wren, said Erin seemed unusually distracted that morning. She kept looking at her phone, like she was waiting for something. Not panicked, but tense. Later, Angela would tell investigators that Erin hadn't spoken much during the shift change and seemed tired, though that wasn't unusual after a full night's work. 7:10 a.m., Smith's Gas and Grocery, Junction Avenue. Security footage confirmed Erin stopped to get gas and bought a small coffee, a banana, and a granola bar. The clerk, Marcus Tillman, remembered her from previous visits. She didn't say much, just thank you and left. Looked like she hadn't slept. Erin was wearing a brown wool coat, faded jeans, and hiking boots. Her shoulder-length black hair was tucked under a knit cap. She drove away in her 1998 Navy Subaru Outback. 7:38 a.m., home, above Kirby's Antiques, Pine Street. Neighbors recalled hearing Erin's footsteps as she climbed the creaky staircase to her apartment. No one saw her enter, but around 10 a.m., a delivery driver reported seeing her through her window, sitting at a desk, head down, writing something. No visitors. No suspicious activity. Nothing unusual, at least not yet. 2:17 p.m., missed call, voicemail deleted. Phone records show Erin received a call from a number registered to a disposable track phone purchased in Rapid City 2 weeks prior. The call lasted 17 seconds. No voicemail was left. Investigators could never track down the phone's buyer, but a store clerk later recalled selling it to a man in his mid-40s of average build, who paid cash. No further details were ever confirmed, and this number was never used again. 3:50 p.m. outgoing text. At 3:50 p.m., Erin sent a brief text to her mother. We'll call you tomorrow. All okay. This was unusual. Erin typically spoke with her mother every other day, and she preferred calls over texting. Miriam Calloway later said the phrasing sounded like her, but also too short, too clipped. When authorities retrieved her phone records, they found it was the last known outgoing message from her device. 5:12 p.m., the hike alleged. A forest ranger reported seeing someone resembling Erin walking along the Mickelson Trail just north of town. She was alone, head down, wearing a coat and gloves, but no visible backpack due to the weather and lack of daylight. The ranger didn't stop. He noted it only after news of her disappearance surfaced. No footprints or tracks were found later in that area. 6:37 p.m., arrival at the Golden Fork Diner. The last confirmed sighting of Erin occurred here. Surveillance footage, later released to the public, shows Erin entering the Golden Fork alone. She sits in the corner booth. The waitress, Gina Mendez, served her regularly. She always got pie and tea. Rhubarb. This time, she barely touched it. According to Gina, Erin looked like she'd been crying. Not sobbing, just red around the eyes. Quiet. She asked for the check within 15 minutes. Before she left, she asked me what time the sun went down. That caught me off guard. Security footage shows Erin stepping out into the freezing night at 7:12 p.m. She is not seen again. 7:18 p.m. Her car is still there. A delivery driver pulled into the same lot minutes later. He remembered seeing her Subaru, driver's side covered in snow, engine off. The lights inside the diner were still on. He didn't see anyone outside. The car would remain there untouched for over 60 hours. Discovery and initial response. February 12, 2011, 9:30 a.m. A diner employee arriving for a morning shift noticed Erin's vehicle still in the lot. Curious, she peeked inside, recognized the person in the passenger seat, and called the police. Lawrence County deputies responded by 10 a.m. They found her purse zipped and undisturbed. Her phone was missing. Its signal had died the previous night at 8:03 p.m., 2.4 miles northwest of the diner, based on ping data. The vehicle doors were locked, keys inside. The driver's seat was pulled forward, consistent with her height, 5 feet 3 inches. There were no signs of forced entry, struggle, or tampering. Footprints in the snow led northeast toward the woods, but only briefly. The tracks ended cleanly about 30 yards from the car, abruptly vanishing. A K-9 unit arrived by 1 p.m. Scent was picked up leading into the tree line, but was lost as shallow creek frozen over with slush and debris. Law enforcement investigation. Case ID, DPD 211 FMC. Sheriff Roger Eckhart declared Erin missing under suspicious circumstances by that afternoon. Detectives from the Black Hills District Task Force joined the investigation. Search grids were mapped, and volunteers from surrounding counties arrived over the next 3 days. Deputy Callahan, lead investigator. It wasn't just the footprints. It was how they stopped. Neat, no drag marks, no backtrack, like she disappeared mid-step. Investigators interviewed co-workers, neighbors, and friends. Most described Erin as introverted, private, and not the type to take off. No history of mental illness. No recent conflicts. She had $3,200 in savings, untouched. No pack bags or travel activity. Her rent was paid up. Her passport had expired. Her apartment showed no signs of forced entry. The heater was running and a half-eaten sandwich in the fridge. Her journal stopped abruptly on February 6th. The last line, cold dreams again. Something was watching near the timberline. Need to get out there. Media coverage and public response. Local outlets picked up the story within a day. By February 14th, flyers were posted across 5 counties. A Facebook page, Find Erin Calloway, gained 9,000 followers in a week. National coverage remained limited, overshadowed by ongoing winter storm events and larger national cases. A vigil held on February 20th in Deadwood drew over 200 attendees. Her mother, in tears, told Coda News, "Erin doesn't just vanish. Someone knows what happened. Someone out there saw something." Theories and red herrings. 2 promising leads turned out to be dead ends. Red herring 1, the truck stop woman, a waitress in Gillette, Wyoming, claimed a woman matching Erin's description came in late on February 10th, wearing a coat like hers, hands shaking. Investigators obtained security footage. It wasn't Erin. Red herring 2, the payphone voicemail. On February 9th at 10:42 p.m., Miriam Calloway's landline received a call traced to a payphone near Beulah, Wyoming. The message contained 14 seconds of white noise and 4 distinct knocks. No voice. The phone was swabbed for prints. None matched anyone in Cody's. A check of the gas station security footage revealed a person in a heavy parka and cap using the phone, but the image was too distorted to confirm gender or identity. This remains the most mysterious element of the case. Rumors, speculation, and local lore. As with many small-town disappearances, the absence of evidence gave rise to shadows. Some believed Erin had planned her disappearance, citing her interest in off-grid living and old survivalist books found in her apartment. Others suspected foul play, a stalker or acquaintance who knew how to disappear cleanly. But a few locals whispered something else entirely. An old miner who lived near Spearfish claimed he'd seen lights in the trees that night, pulsing silently in the snow. A retired hunter mentioned hearing a distant humming near where Erin's footprints ended. Theories of the supernatural, while not endorsed by law enforcement, gained traction online. Detective Callahan dismissed these rumors. "We deal in facts, and the facts tell us this. Erin walked into that night, and something stopped her from coming back." February 23rd, 2011, search suspended. After nearly 2 weeks, ground searches were officially called off due to extreme weather and lack of new leads. Erin Calloway was officially listed as a missing person SD 110209 Cal. Her file remains open, her face still featured on South Dakota's Missing Persons Registry. The last confirmed trace of her, those fading steps in snow, remain preserved in crime scene photos filed away in a cold storage vault, along with a voice no one can identify, a ping no one can explain, and a case that refuses to let go. The unexplained disappearance of Erin Calloway in February of 2011 has puzzled investigators, haunted her family, and left an entire community with more questions than answers. With no body, no clear signs of foul play, and only a handful of scattered clues, the case remains one of South Dakota's most enigmatic missing persons investigations. To this day, Erin's name is etched into the archives of unsolved cases, cold, quiet, and unrelenting. In this segment, we examine 3 of the most plausible and haunting theories surrounding what may have happened to the 28-year-old night clerk. Each theory is rooted in documented behavior, known evidence, and corroborated accounts. And yet, as with many true mysteries, none of them brings us closer to a definitive truth. Theory 1, targeted abduction by a known acquaintance. The most widely accepted theory among law enforcement is that Erin was abducted, deliberately and methodically, by someone she knew. The track phone lead, the burner phone that contacted her on the afternoon of February 9th, remains a focal point. Investigators trace the purchase back to a Rapid City Walmart, time-stamped January 24th. 2 weeks before Erin vanished, a man was caught on grainy surveillance footage paying with cash, wearing a black hoodie and jeans. His face was obscured. While the resolution was poor, the man's height was estimated to be around 5 feet 10 inches to 6 feet 0 inches, and his body language, hands in pockets, eyes on the floor, raised suspicions. The number was used only once and never again. Erin answered that call. Law enforcement later speculated that the call could have been a lure, perhaps someone posing as a potential friend, employer, or someone from her past. Her behavior that day, distracted, nervous, glancing at her phone, supports the possibility that she was awaiting an encounter. The missing time frame. After she left the diner at 7:12 p.m., Erin was never seen again. Her phone pinged briefly at 8:03 p.m. near a frozen creek northeast of town. That location was consistent with a footprint trail found by search teams, leading into the woods, then stopping abruptly. Was she intercepted there? Did she walk to her planned meeting? Despite canvassing the area, no other tracks were found nearby, no vehicle tire imprints, no other set of footprints. Yet the snow was falling heavily that night, and conditions could have easily obscured any physical evidence within an hour. Acquaintance or stranger, the intimate nature of Erin's disappearance, no sign of struggle, no screaming neighbors, no forced entry, has led investigators to believe the abductor may have been someone she trusted or at least didn't fear. Detective Callahan summarized the profile. She leaves the diner alone. Her car remains untouched. She walks off into the night voluntarily. Whatever happened, it didn't start with a fight. It started with a conversation. But no known individual in Erin's life has ever matched the limited criteria tied to the track phone purchaser. No DNA was recovered. No credible suspects emerged. Theory 2, voluntary disappearance, a vanishing by choice. Some believe Erin simply chose to vanish. A woman who, for reasons of her own, walked away from everything, her job, her home, her family, and began a new life under a new identity. At first glance, this seems unlikely. Erin had no history of travel. Her social life was limited. She had no car rental, and no one was waiting for her at a bus station. Her passport had expired. There were no searches on her computer for border crossings, ID changes, or aliases. And yet, there were subtle signs that Erin may have been preparing for something. The journals. Among her belongings, investigators found 5 personal journals. While most of the entries revolve around her daily routines, dreams, and memories, the last few weeks took a darker, more introspective turn. One entry from January 22nd reads, "Some nights I don't recognize myself. Something has to give. Something has to change." Another from February 2nd, "Dreams of walking into the cold and never returning. It doesn't feel like dying. It feels like freedom. These writings, while not definitive evidence of intent, raise concerns about her mental state. Was she overwhelmed? Did she feel trapped by routine? Haunted by the past? Her friend, Layla Barnett, disagrees. Erin was intense, yeah, but not unstable. She talked about needing space, but not leaving. Cash and behavior. One detail that supports the voluntary disappearance theory is her modest savings. Erin had over $3,000 in checking account, completely untouched since her disappearance. While not a fortune, it was enough to finance a short relocation or a temporary retreat. Additionally, her co-workers noted that she had become more withdrawn in the weeks leading up to her vanishing. One supervisor said she began declining overtime hours and was obsessively reading books on wilderness survival, solitary retreats, and Thoreau's Walden. The problem? No trail. If Erin chose to disappear, she did it with remarkable discipline. No paper trail, no contacts, no new identity or financial activity, no sightings. Voluntary disappearances happen, but they often unravel. A slip-up, a phone call, a purchase, a face caught on a camera. In 14 years, Erin Calloway has left no trace. Theory 3, natural disappearance or something else entirely. This theory is less about intent or abduction and more about possibility. Could Erin have become disoriented or lost in the brutal elements of the Black Hills? Could she have suffered an accident and her body remains undiscovered? Or could the truth be something far stranger? The terrain. The Black Hills in February are unforgiving. Temperatures dropped to 12 degrees Fahrenheit the night Erin vanished. The creek near where her footprints ended was partially frozen. Dense forest and uneven terrain extended for miles beyond the last known location. It is conceivable she wandered into the woods, fell, or became hypothermic. Perhaps the K-9 units simply missed her final location due to the snowpack and river noise. Over the years, several hikers have gone missing in that same stretch of wilderness. Some found months later, some never found at all. But here's the catch. Erin was experienced in the area. She hiked often. She knew the trails. And there was no reason, no rational one at least, for her to head that far into trees after dark, with no flashlight, no gear, and a bitter storm approaching. The knock pattern. Then there's the voicemail. On the night Erin vanished, her mother received a mysterious call from a Wyoming payphone. One traceable location over 60 miles away. The message was only 14 seconds long. Silence, followed by 4 rhythmic knocks. No voice, no breathing. This message has never been explained. Some theorists, especially online, have pointed to this as proof of something otherworldly, a cryptic communication, a code, a warning. Others dismiss it as a cruel prank, an eerie coincidence. But Miriam Calloway has listened to that message hundreds of times. She insists the knock pattern is deliberate, and that Erin had used similar rhythmic tapping as a child to signal, "I'm okay," during storm drills. The local folklore. Deadwood is no stranger to legends. The Mickelson Trail has long been whispered about in local circles. Stories of lights that move against the wind, sounds without sources, and animals found dead with no visible injuries. Retired forest ranger Bill Dempsey recalls, "There are places out there you just don't go after dark, not because of bears, because it feels wrong, like being watched." Some residents believe Erin encountered something unexplained, something ancient, a force of presence. Perhaps she didn't fall. Perhaps she was taken not by a man, but by something else. Law enforcement has never acknowledged this theory publicly, but among locals, it's mentioned in quiet voices and uneasy glances. Where that leaves us, 3 theories, all plausible in their way, all rooted in the same immutable truth. Erin Calloway disappeared without a trace. Nobody, no witness, no closure. She walked into the night and, in a moment, became a question. Some believe she met with violence. Others found freedom. And a few believe she was taken by something we have no words for. But one thing is certain. Something happened in Deadwood on February 9th, 2011. And someone somewhere still knows the truth. What do you think happened to Erin Calloway? Was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Drop your thoughts in the comments. For more content relating to horrors and missing cases, subscribe to the channel. The unforgettable disappearance of Erin Holloway, Cold Spring, New York, 2011. On a frostbitten evening in early December 2011, 26-year-old Erin Holloway walked out of her apartment in Cold Spring, New York, and was never seen again. Her cell phone was left charging on the kitchen counter. Her coat was still hanging on the hook by the door. The only thing missing was Erin herself. If you're new to this channel, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel as we dive into details of the disappearance of Erin Holloway. Nestled along the eastern banks of the Hudson River, Cold Spring, New York, is the kind of place people pass through, not usually the place they disappear from. A quiet village with fewer than 2,000 residents. It boasts antique shops, cozy cafes, and postcard views of the river. But when winter rolls in, Cold Spring changes. The tourists vanish. The trees stand bare against gray skies. And in the early evenings, the town can feel almost forgotten, suspended in a kind of stillness. It was in that quiet, snow-dusted setting that Erin Holloway disappeared without a trace. Erin was 26 years old, petite, soft-spoken, and fiercely independent. Friends describe her as gentle but determined, the kind of person who kept to herself but never ignored a friend in need. She lived in a modest second-story walk-up on Fair Street for nearly 3 years, working remotely as a freelance graphic designer while volunteering part-time at the local library. Her life, by all accounts, was quiet, predictable, even safe. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, those closest to Erin began to notice small shifts. She'd recently ended a long-distance relationship. Her social media activity had slowed to almost nothing, and though she was never especially outgoing, she had started declining even casual invitations, turning down dinner plans, and skipping weekly Zoom calls with her sister in Portland. Her landlord, Marjorie Levine, a retired schoolteacher who lived below Erin's unit, later told investigators that she'd heard Erin pacing at night, sometimes for hours, and that her blinds were often drawn, even during the day. Still, nothing stood out as alarming, at least not until December 3rd. That day, temperatures had dropped below freezing by nightfall. Around 5:45 p.m., Erin's neighbor across the hall, a 40-year-old mechanic named Jesse Paulson, reported hearing what he described as a soft knock, followed by the click of Erin's door closing. That sound, according to his later statement, would be the last time anyone confirmed her presence. The following morning, when Erin didn't show up for her volunteer shift at the Butterfield Library, concern began to grow. One of the staff members, a woman named Rachel Miles, called Erin's phone no answer. She texted no response. After a full day without contact, Rachel stopped by the apartment and knocked. No sound, no movement inside. Thinking Erin may have gone out unexpectedly, Rachel left a note on the door. It wasn't until late the next day, December 5th, that someone officially reported Erin missing. That call was made by her older sister, Lisa Holloway, after multiple failed attempts to reach her over the weekend. The Putnam County Sheriff's Department responded just before midnight. Inside Erin's apartment, deputies found no immediate signs of struggle. Her phone was on the counter, screen dark but charged. Her purse was on the floor beside her desk, untouched. Her winter coat was still hanging on the wall hook near the door. The heating was on. The place was clean, almost eerily so, but otherwise ordinary. One detail did raise eyebrows. A half-finished cup of chamomile tea on the windowsill, still faintly warm when officers arrived, an indication that whatever happened to Erin, it hadn't occurred long before police got there. A missing person report was officially filed that same night. Case No. PCSD 113482. Erin Holloway. White female. 5 feet 4 inches. Approximately 120 pounds. Brown eyes. Dark auburn hair. Last seen wearing black yoga pants and a gray hoodie. No known history of mental illness or substance abuse. Within 24 hours, flyers were circulating in town and adjacent counties. Search teams combed nearby hiking trails, particularly around Little Stony Point and Breakneck Ridge, places Erin was known to frequent during warmer months. A dive team was even brought in to scan the shallow stretches of the Hudson, though winter conditions severely hampered visibility. But there was nothing, no footprints in snow, no witnesses, no camera footage. That part, investigators found particularly strange. Cold Spring has minimal surveillance infrastructure, but it isn't devoid of it. A handful of cameras positioned outside local businesses, mostly along Main Street, recorded footage the night Erin vanished. None captured her. A private camera mounted above a bicycle shop, facing Fair Street, showed the sidewalk in front of Erin's building from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. that evening. The footage revealed 3 people passing by on foot and 1 delivery vehicle. Erin wasn't among them. It was almost as though she'd vanished inside the building. When detectives reviewed her phone records, they found that her last outgoing message had been a brief email to a client at 5:17 p.m. the evening she disappeared. The message contained a link to a revised version of the website design. Nothing about it suggested distress. Her browser history showed several mundane activities: checking the weather, looking at recipes, briefly skimming an article about seasonal depression. At 5:41 p.m., the activity ceased. Her laptop was closed and never opened again. Her family, friends, and co-workers were all interviewed in the following days. Erin's sister Lisa described their last conversation as normal, just a little off. She said Erin had mentioned feeling tired, not sleeping well, that she was trying to be more social and thinking about visiting soon. But she hadn't expressed fear or discomfort. One former boyfriend, David Malloy, the man she dated for nearly a year before ending things that October, was briefly considered a person of interest. He lived in Poughkeepsie, about 35 miles away. According to his statement, he hadn't spoken to Erin in over a month. His alibi for the evening of December 3rd checked out. He was at his brother's house, attending a small birthday gathering. Multiple attendees confirmed this. Another point of interest came when investigators examined a spiral-bound notebook found in Erin's nightstand drawer. On the final page, she'd written a short, fragmented message. Hard to tell what's real lately. Waking you, not sure where I am. Voices on the stairs again. It's probably just the pipes. But what if it's not? The message prompted renewed investigation into the apartment building itself, a 4-unit structure built in 1939. An inspection revealed nothing unusual. No hidden passageways, no crawl spaces, just creaking pipes and old walls. Other tenants reported no disturbances, no unusual activity. The building, in the words of Detective Aria Moreno, was just old. Not haunted, not unsafe, just old. Still, the entry raised troubling questions. Was Erin experiencing hallucinations, paranoia, or was someone watching her, entering the building undetected? As weeks turned into months, the case began to stagnate. Erin's bank account remained untouched. Her credit card showed no activity. No ransom demand was ever made. And no confirmed sightings ever emerged, not in New York, not anywhere. By spring 2012, the sheriff's department quietly shifted the case from active investigation to pending. Though officially still open, leads had dried up. The file was moved to cold case storage under code CS 12H, Erin H. To this day, theories abound. Some believe Erin may have walked out her apartment in a fugue state, driven by exhaustion or stress, and succumbed to the elements. Others suggest a darker scenario: an unknown intruder, someone familiar enough with the building to enter and exit without being seen. A few hold to a more unsettling belief that Erin never left the apartment at all, that somewhere in the layers of that old building or beneath the surface of that quiet town, a secret remains, one that time and silence have conspired to keep. But in the cold light of reality, the truth is simpler and sadder. Erin Holloway is still missing. No trace, no closure, no peace. Only a fading photograph on the community bulletin board at the library, beside a yellowing flyer with the words, "Have you seen Erin?" There's a moment, a sliver in time, when everything seems normal until it isn't. December 3rd, 2001 was one of those days. The day Erin Holloway disappeared began with snow. Light flurries had dusted Cold Spring, New York, by dawn, leaving behind a thin sheen of frost over rooftops and sidewalks. The sun rose quietly, casting long gray shadows across the Hudson River. It was the kind of early December day where nothing much happens. Cold, still forgettable, but for the people who knew Erin, that day would never be forgotten. 7:32 a.m., routine silence. Marjorie Levine, Erin's 71-year-old landlord, awoke to the creak of the old radiator heating up below her bedroom window. She told investigators later that she hadn't heard any unusual sound that morning. No arguments, no movement above her, just the normal groans of the building waking with the day. According to digital logs, Erin's phone connected to her home Wi-Fi at 7:19 a.m., and her laptop was open at 7:26 a.m. Internet activity shows she checked her email, skimmed 2 news articles, and visited a local weather site. The forecast predicted a low of 24 degrees Fahrenheit by nightfall. She didn't Google directions. She didn't look up bus schedules. No sign she was preparing to leave town. 9:18 a.m., a familiar face. Rachel Miles, a librarian at the Butterfield Library, told police she received a short text from Erin confirming she'd be in for her usual Saturday volunteer shift from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. That message would be Erin's final confirmed outgoing communication on her phone. At 10:36 a.m., security footage from the library's back entrance shows Rachel entering alone. By 11 a.m., with no sign of Erin, Rachel assumed she decided to skip. It wasn't like her to miss a shift, she later said, but I figured maybe she wasn't feeling well. 12:03 p.m., last public sighting. Local resident Tom Becker, 62, reported seeing Erin standing in front of LeClaire's Deli on Main Street just after noon. She was alone, wearing a gray hoodie, holding what looked like a small paper bag. Tom described her demeanor as quiet, distracted, adding that she didn't seem to notice him. Police were never able to confirm this sighting with footage. LeClaire's exterior camera hadn't been operational since October due to wiring issues. But Tom, a former volunteer firefighter and lifelong Cold Spring resident, was considered a reliable witness. That moment would mark the last time anyone saw Erin Holloway outside her apartment. 3:41 p.m., an unused ticket. Investigators discovered that Erin had reserved a seat on a local Metro North train, departing from Cold Spring Station at 4:15 p.m. Scheduled to arrive in Beacon just 14 minutes later. The purpose of the trip remains unclear. She never boarded. The electronic ticket went unused. Railway CCTV confirmed she never passed through the station platform entrance. Officers reviewed the footage multiple times. There was no sign of her approaching or departing from the area. 5:17 p.m., the final digital footprint. Digital forensic analysis from Erin's laptop indicates that she sent a final work email to a freelance client at 5:17 p.m., attaching an updated version of a website design. The message was brief and professional, with no unusual language or indication of distress. At 5:19 p.m., the laptop was closed. It would not be powered on again. 5:42 p.m., the door closes. Jesse Paulson, Erin's neighbor across the hall, heard what he described as a light knock, followed by the soft sound of a door latching shut. He couldn't say whether it was Erin leaving or someone else arriving, but he remembered the moment because he said, it was unusually quiet for a Saturday night. The next 10 minutes are the most heavily scrutinized in the timeline. At 5:44 p.m., the motion-activated security light at the building's rear stairwell flickered on, then off, indicating brief movement. By 5:50 p.m., snow began to fall again, thin, wind-driven flakes that would quickly coat the streets. No footprints were ever recovered outside Erin's building. 6 p.m., an empty apartment. What followed was silence. Erin made no more calls, sent no more messages. No lights were seen switching on or off from her apartment. No movement was heard through the ceiling by Marjorie Levine. When Rachel Miles texted her again around 7:30 p.m., the message was marked delivered but never read. By Sunday morning, that phone had gone completely silent. December 5th, 2011, the official report. At 11:42 p.m., Lisa Holloway, Erin's older sister in Portland, Oregon, called the Putnam County Sheriff's Department. After 2 days of silence, she was convinced something was wrong. Deputies arrived at Erin's apartment within 20 minutes. Inside, nothing was out of place. A small, untouched grocery bag from LeClaire's Deli sat on the kitchen counter, likely the one Tom Becker had seen her carrying. Her phone was charging. Her coat, boots, and purse were all present. The heating was still on. Her bed was neatly made. A single mug of chamomile tea sat cooling by the living room window, according to initial field notes from responding Deputy Carla Wynn. The scene lacked any sign of disturbance or struggle. No broken locks, no overturned furniture, no evidence of self-harm. Apartment secured. No immediate signs of foul play. But Erin was gone. The investigation begins. December 6, 2011, 8:15 a.m. The missing persons report was entered into the state database. PCSD 11-3482. Holloway, Erin L. White female, 5 feet 4 inches, 120 pounds. Last seen December 3rd, 2011, Cold Spring, New York. Sheriff's detectives began interviewing neighbors, co-workers, and friends. Canvassing teams knocked on every door in a 6-block radius. The Hudson Highland Search and Rescue Team was deployed with dogs and thermal drones. Despite fresh snowfall, they scoured the wooded trails north of the village and along the riverbank. No scent, no tracks, no physical evidence recovered. Her car, a silver 2004 Toyota Corolla, was still parked out front undisturbed. It was locked. No print on the handle but her own. Theories and red herrings. 2 main theories dominated early police speculation. 1, voluntary disappearance. Some investigators initially suggested Erin may have left on her own, possibly to clear her head after a breakup. But this theory quickly lost steam. Erin left behind her ID, wallet, and phone. No travel records. No cash withdrawals. No prior indications that she was planning to leave. Her sister Lisa was adamant. She was private, yes, but she wouldn't disappear without telling someone. She wasn't that kind of person. 2, an unknown visitor. The possibility of an unknown individual entering the apartment, perhaps through the rear stairwell, was heavily explored. But again, no prints, no witness reports, no signs of forced entry, and no surveillance footage shows any visitors. False lead number 1, the van driver. On December 8th, a woman reported seeing a dark van parked on the street near Erin's building around the time of her disappearance. The tip sparked a brief flurry of investigation, but footage from a nearby parking lot revealed it belonged to a visiting contractor who'd left town that night. False lead number 2, the journal entry. Investigators were briefly led down a darker path after discovering Erin's cryptic note in her nightstand. Hard to tell what's real lately. Voices on the stairs again. Mental health concerns were floated, but Erin had no diagnosed history of psychological issues. Her primary care physician confirmed she had never reported hearing voices or experiencing delusions. Her closest friends denied ever hearing her speak of such things. Some dismissed it as stream of consciousness writing. Others weren't so sure. Media, rumors, and quiet despair. By mid-December, regional media picked up the story. Local headlines read, "Cold Spring Woman Vanishes from Her Apartment. Hudson Valley Mystery. Where's Erin Holloway?" The case was featured in a segment on Hudson Valley Watch, drawing brief national attention. Tips came in, but none were credible. Rumors, as always, filled a vacuum. Some whispered of a drifter seen near the train station. Others pointed to a conspiracy involving one of Erin's freelance clients. An Albany-based design firm later confirmed to have no connection to her disappearance. Friends and family held a vigil on December 15th at the Cold Spring Gazebo, a candlelight gathering on the waterfront. Lisa spoke through tears. "We don't want justice. We want Erin home." But the snow kept falling. The case grew cold. Where the answer should be, the most haunting aspect remains how ordinary the day was, how silent, how unremarkable, until it wasn't. Erin Holloway didn't run. She didn't drive. She didn't buy a bus ticket. There were no texts hinting at a plan. No lovers waiting in secret. No debt. No fear. She simply left. If she did, Because even that, whether Erin ever walked out of her apartment that night, remains an open question. There was no struggle, no sound, no one saw her leave. And some in town quietly wonder if Erin ever left that apartment at all. Every mystery breeds theories. In Erin Holloway's case, there are too many, yet not a single one fits just right. When 28-year-old Erin vanished from her small Cold Spring apartment on a snowy December day in 2011, she left behind more than just a cold mug of tea and an unused train ticket. She left behind a fractured timeline, a deeply unsettled community, and a swirl of questions that is yet to settle. What happened between 5:17 p.m., when she sent her last known email, L, and 5:44 p.m., when her building's motion light flickered briefly, then died back into stillness? As we continue to examine the case of Erin Holloway, we turn now to three of the most plausible and chilling theories that have emerged over the years. Each one is grounded in fact, each one with a fatal flaw, and still each one is possible. Theory 1, the quiet abduction. Profile, sudden disappearance, no witnesses, no struggle. From the beginning, law enforcement considered the possibility that Erin was abducted. But if so, the how remains one of the most perplexing aspects of this case. Her apartment showed no signs of forced entry. The front door was locked from the inside. Windows were sealed shut. No screams were heard. No struggle reported. Her purse, coat, phone, and wallet all untouched. So how does someone disappear so cleanly, so quietly? Detective Arthur McKinnon, the lead investigator on the case at the time, described it as the kind of vanishing that haunts seasoned cops, because there's no trail. It's like chasing vapor. Still, certain facts point toward foul play. The rear stairwell light, activated at 5:44 p.m., shortly after Erin's laptop was closed. Police believe this could have been the exit path, either Erin's or someone else's, but no prints, no DNA, and no camera footage to confirm who passed through. The knock. Jesse Paulson, her across-the-hall neighbor, reported hearing a knock and a door latch around 5:42 p.m. Was it someone she knew? Someone she trusted enough to open the door for? Or someone pretending? The van theory revisited. Though initially dismissed, a 2020 Freedom of Information request revealed that a second witness, as a former post office employee, also reported seeing a dark van idling near the alleyway behind Erin's building that same evening, just after dusk. This detail was never confirmed, and the timeline remains circumstantial. But its presence haunts the theory. Could she have been lured or forced into a waiting vehicle? Then there's a behavioral profile. Erin had no enemies, no known stalkers. But abductions aren't always personal. Some are opportunistic, quick, without warning. And as former FBI profiler Helena Graves once said in a podcast about the case, in small towns, people assume the devil wears a name tag, but sometimes it's just a stranger with timing. Still, the abduction theory falters when placed against the stillness of her apartment. No signs of resistance, no dragging, no disarray. If she was taken, she either left willingly or was somehow silenced before she could cry out. And that's the part that continues to disturb investigators. Not just that Erin may have been abducted, but that she may have known the person responsible. Theory 2, voluntary disappearance. Profile, isolation, secret plans, mental health, emotional withdrawal. The second leading theory, Erin left of her own volition. To many close to her, this is the least convincing explanation. But certain threads can't be ignored. The journal entry, hard to tell what's real lately, voices on the stairs again. Found in a notebook tucked in her nightstand drawer. The phrasing suggests a fracture, either emotional or possibly even psychological. The missed train. Erin had a Metro North e-ticket scheduled to depart at 4:15 p.m. to Beacon. She never used it, but did she plan to leave and then change her mind? The unopened letters. Investigators found 4 sealed envelopes in Erin's desk, all addressed to friends and family, none mailed. The contents were never publicly disclosed, but sources close to the investigation confirmed the letters contained vague language about taking time and disconnecting to breathe. They were not suicide notes, nor were they explicit goodbyes, more like floating thoughts, suggestive of someone who felt distant or burdened. Some believe she planned a soft exit, to disappear quietly and reclaim some peace. But if so, how? She didn't drive. She left behind her phone and wallet. There were no ride shares ordered, no cash withdrawals, and no travel records. The security cameras at Cold Spring Station, her only plausible exit point, never recorded her. If she left, she did so in a way that defies logistics. A ghost exit. Then there's the contradiction of her recent activity. She was freelancing consistently, working on a new portfolio. She had a coffee date planned with Rachel Miles the following week. She'd even RSVP'd to a holiday party at the library. Not the behavior of someone preparing to vanish. Lisa Holloway, her sister, was adamant. If she was in pain, she never told me. But even if she was, Erin wouldn't do this to us, not without a word. Which raises a question. Could momentary crisis have pushed her to leave? Or did something or someone push her over the edge? Theory 3, something unexplainable. Profile, patterns, location, folklore, unresolved cases. While this theory stretches the boundaries of logic, its persistence among locals can't be ignored. Cold Spring sits on the edge of the Hudson Highlands, a region dense with centuries-old trails, deep forests, and unsettling stories. Erin's building itself, a converted Victorian structure from the early 1900s, was rumored to be strange even before her disappearance. Marjorie Levine, her landlord, once said, "Sometimes you hear footsteps when no one's there." I chalk it up to creaky floors and old bones. But Erin once asked me if anyone else lived in the attic. There isn't one. Other tenants have since reported hearing unexplained sounds from the stairwell, scraping, low knocks, even whispers. Of course, these could all be old pipes and shifting wood. But the idea that Erin's disappearance fits into something larger stems from a pattern. Between 1996 and 2021, for other women between the ages of 25 and 35 were reported missing from small towns along the eastern bank of the Hudson River within a 30-mile radius. Each case shares eerie similarities. Vanished during winter, no signs of foul play, no credible leads. Cases still unsolved. These disappearances aren't officially connected, but locals whisper about the Hudson vanishings. And though police treat these as separate incidents, some researchers have quietly compiled their own file, paralleling timelines, noting phases of the moon, temperatures, and even electromagnetic anomalies recorded by amateur investigators. None of this can be proven. There's no physical evidence of anything supernatural. But when a person disappears without a trace, without motive, without a single piece of physical proof, they leave behind space. And in that space, myths grow. Erin Holloway wasn't someone prone to magical thinking. She was logical, methodical, but the journal entry, the voices, the complete and total absence of evidence, it's enough to give some pause. Could something unseen have taken her? Or is that just our desperation speaking? Our human need to place stories on what we don't understand? A vanishing that defies logic. The problem with Erin Holloway's disappearance isn't a lack of clues. It's that none of them point anywhere. A deli bag is on the counter. A tea mug is cooling by the window. A laptop closed at 5:17 p.m. A motion sensor light that flickers once in the snow. No signs of a struggle. No signs of departure. No one saw her leave. No one heard her scream. It's as if she stepped sideways into a place where no one could follow. For her sister, for her friends, for the town of Cold Spring, time stopped in 2011. The seasons changed. Buildings were repainted. Tenants moved in and out. But Erin's absence remains frozen in place. Detectives still receive tips, though they've grown fewer over the years. Lisa Holloway keeps the case alive, speaking at local events, updating the Find Erin website, maintaining a candle in her apartment window every December 3rd. But after 14 years, the silence has begun to settle. So what happened to Erin Holloway? Was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Drop your thoughts in the comments. For more content relating to horrors and missing cases, subscribe to the channel